We have reimagined this space as a more of a talk show format, and we'll have new episodes the second Wednesday of each month from 6 p.m. to 7:30. Here's some important logistical information to keep in mind. Automated closed captioning is available by clicking on the CC button in the lower left corner of your screen. Please keep in mind that there may be some margin of error. To see who's speaking, click the Captions and Highlights option that appears when you hover over the robot in the lower left corner of your screen. For the Q&A sessions, please use the chat feature or unmute. To unmute on a phone, press *6, or you can also raise your hand to be called on by selecting the hand icon in the participant panel. To raise your hand on the phone, press *3. To enlarge the screen while content is being shared, click on the magnifying icons on the left side of the screen.
So tonight, we're going to dive into issues that are important to you and your families. This will allow us to have meaningful conversations with community members, community leaders, and community organizations. We want to give you an opportunity to get to know your neighbors across Seattle. The Seattle Department of Neighborhoods Community Conversations is for you and about you.
And we're going to start this evening with a land acknowledgement to ground the group and recognize the original stewards of this land. So we would like to acknowledge that we're on an Indigenous land, the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and they're people that are still here continuing to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. So tonight we will focus on our youth. We have guests joining us from the Department of Education and Early Learning, Seattle Public Schools, Public Health, Seattle and King County, and Bird Bar Place Food Bank. Our conversations will focus on remote learning, school reopening, and resources available for parents, especially for communities of color and low-income families. But before we get started with our conversation, we wanted to give you an update that we learned yesterday about the Census 2020. So today or tomorrow is actually the final day to respond to the census. So Thursday, October 15th is the final day. So please spread the word. For anyone who hasn't filled out the census yet, it's pretty quick. It only takes about 10 minutes, and you can go to my2020census.gov, and the last time to fill it out is 11:59 Hawaii Standard Time tomorrow, October 15th. So please fill it out. It's important that everyone's counted for important resources and funding that are informed by the census. So let's begin tonight with an update from Public Health, Seattle and King County on the COVID-19 pandemic during this fall season. So joining us from Public Health, Seattle and King County is Becky Reitzes, who is an educator consultant. And it's great to have you on the show, Becky. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And so as Becky and I are chatting, feel free to type any questions in the chat as they come up. And then once we get to the end of our conversation, then there will also be an opportunity for people to speak their questions out loud if you prefer that. So when we get to that point, we'll let you know, but feel free to enter questions in the chat. So
Can I ask a logistics question?
Yeah, definitely.
Are we going to be waiting until the end to answer the questions, or should I be answering them as we go? Do you have a preference?
Let's wait until the end.
Okay.
Yeah, the end of this segment.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay, great. So it feels like, well, at least I have some anxiety around it, and I think a lot of other people do, around feeling like they might have sniffles or other symptoms that seem like they're COVID-19, and especially as we're heading into the cold and flu season. Are there any symptoms we should be on the lookout for? And at what point should we get tested?
Awesome. Esprit, could you pull up slide 4 for me? So, the symptoms of COVID-19 are confusing because they're really similar to a lot of symptoms of a lot of colds and flus. So the specific symptoms of COVID-19 have really grown. Like, we have recognized a number of other symptoms and then we knew in the beginning. So main symptoms of COVID-19 can be a cough, a sore throat, fever, and the fever would be over 100.4. That's very specific, but a fever, so just thinking over 100 degrees, muscle pains and chills, shortness of breath, a loss of taste or smell, and that's very specific to COVID-19, and it's a sudden loss. And that comes back, just so you know. And then another one that's not on the slide is some nausea and diarrhea and vomiting. So you can imagine that those are the same symptoms that people often get with colds and flus. So what I would recommend is if someone is having any of these symptoms, they want to get tested. Espree, would you put up slide 5 for me? So they do want to either go to their doctor or come to one of our either the city testing sites or the county testing sites and get tested for any of those symptoms. And really with COVID, usually we're seeing 2 or more of the symptoms together. But if someone's having a fever, shortness of breath, those would be some, a really bad cough, those would be some of the ones I would make sure to get tested for. But especially anytime we have a fever, I want to get tested and at least rule it out. Oh, and I do want to also show, could we pull up slides 5 and, I'm sorry, 6 and then 7? And I want to show that there are ADA accessible sites and also ASL interpreters and tactile interpreters for folks who are deaf and blind, both at the city. So this lists all the city sites and we can send this out. And then can you pull up the next slide? And these are the ones throughout in South King County that are ADA accessible. So Laura, is that helpful?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was actually a question that someone had asked us via email too, was what testing sites are available to people who are in a wheelchair and which ones are accessible. So it looks like a lot of the city testing sites are ADA wheelchair accessible.
Yeah.
And then, so also looking at any of the latest public health guidelines and things like that, are there ways that people can stay up to date on those public health guidelines? And then maybe also, if you want to talk a little bit more about your group, if people are interested in having a training for their community group or nonprofit or anything like that around COVID-19, can you talk a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, I would love that. So Espree, would you mind pulling up slide 8? So this is our King County's COVID-19 website, and then you'll notice the arrow, this is available in 33 languages. So when you scroll down on the page, there's little buttons for 33 different languages that you can click on and get all of this information in all of those languages. So this is a great place to keep up to date, both on reopening. So you'll notice it says Safe Start, and Safe Start, when you click on that, that is a site that can bring you to reopening regulations and guidelines and the latest up-to-date guidelines for King County around for small businesses, for nonprofits, for gatherings, things like that. So this would be a great resource for that type of information. And then before I move on, Laura, did I answer that first part of the questions?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then Espree, would you mind pulling up slide 1? So I wanted to mention that King County has the Speakers Bureau, and I've been a part of it actually since March. So we design webinars and trainings, and we really do specialize them for each or tailor them to each request that we get. So we can provide free trainings and webinars and educations and conversations. So it doesn't have to be on Zoom for folks who that's not the best way. It can be over the phone. It could be us talking, maybe training somebody from an agency so that they can bring back that information to their agency and in culturally relevant and in the appropriate language. So, sorry, culturally relevant way is an appropriate language. So we can provide all of that for free. And on that website, you can click on it and actually make a request. You could also email my email address, which I can put in, the chat. It's not on the slides, I just realized. I will put that in the chat, and so you can also email me, and then we can provide whatever training or updates are needed.
Great, thank you, Becky. And then also, I guess before we head into the Q&A, do you have anything that you think it's important for the community to know at this point, as information is changing so rapidly, it seems like? Is there anything that you want people on this call to know?
Yeah, I would say listen to, our governor and King County Public Health, that we really are staying up to date. I know there's a lot of confusion because people are watching like CNN or Fox News and the federal or the national news, and then it conflicts with what our local public health is saying. And I will say that local public health is doing a phenomenal job. I know I work for them, but I wouldn't say if I didn't believe it, and really keeping up to date on all the requirements. I also want to say that this is an illness that's very much preventable. And I know that folks are really afraid. I hear the fear in all of the trainings I'm doing. And so this is definitely an illness that is preventable. And we are absolutely available to help chat with folks around how to prevent it.
Okay, thank you, Becky. That's helpful advice. And then, so now we can move into, if anyone has any questions for Becky that we haven't covered yet, feel free to put your question into the chat if you prefer, or you can also unmute yourself using the button at the bottom, or press *6 to unmute yourself on the phone. And then please state your name before you ask your question so we know who's speaking.
And there is a question in the chat from Betty, so I'm happy to read that one out.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, a neighbor says, don't get a flu shot till November because it will expire before spring. Is that true or false? And everything I've heard is that it's false. I've already gotten my flu shot. We are already doing flu clinics at our sites and recommending folks to get them actually early. The big thing with the flu shot is the reason that we're recommending the flu shot is we want folks to be if they do get COVID, we want them to be as healthy as possible if they get it. And having one respiratory illness on top of another respiratory illness is not going to be great for the body. So if we can prevent the flu, which we do have a vaccine for, it's going to be helpful then if someone does get COVID to prevent getting a very serious illness from it. So the short answer is everything I know around that is false, and we're recommending folks to get them early.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions for Becky?
May I ask another one? Is there a direct, I work with a couple of refugee organizations in addition to Chinatown and Japantown. Is there a direct link to those 33 translations so we can see what languages they are?
Yes. Let me pull up the actual link itself so you can actually pull that up. I'll put it in the chat for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm looking for Nepalese, Cham, Burmese.
Well, the important thing to say is if you do not find the language that you are seeking, you can make a request to King County, and we will actually create it. So we have community navigators. So we've trained dozens of folks from community to train in community, and who speak multiple languages and can bring out messages to community. So we also have folks who can present information in many different languages as well, along with this website. So when you click on that website, if you scroll down, you'll get the buttons that you can just click on, and that will give you the site for that language, but it will also show you the 33 languages available. I should say 34 because there's English and then there's 33. So there's 34 languages total. Betty, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Information changes so quickly. Is there a lag time, or what is the lead time to get that translated and out to people? Because sometimes something comes out and I'm looking for a translation and it's not available, or
yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is check that website and see if it's available already. And if it's not, then you can make a request to the county to make it. It depends on if you need it printed. It depends on the language. So I had a bunch of materials printed in Braille, and that took about a week. But other materials I've had, but that was because I needed them printed and mailed out. So other materials have taken a couple of days. Okay. And then I see there's also a question from Pam. It says, how is the health department collaborating with districts to inform decisions around in-person learning and other educational services? So Jeff Duchin, our medical director, is meeting with all the superintendents pretty regularly to inform them about, recommendations. So Public Health Seattle King County is working very closely with the school districts and keeping an eye on all the different numbers and risks involved for students. And then we've also created a toolkit for districts to use, both for today around COVID and then also in terms of reopening for COVID. So we have a wonderful toolkit on that same website. It can be found on that same website. Ms. Free, would you pull up slide 8 again for me? So you can see here it says schools and childcare. So that would be where someone would go to on this site to find the information, that toolkit that I mentioned, to help support schools and childcares in reopening, and also to help figure out where we are in the different phases of reopening. So I answered it 2 ways. One is we're working really close with the districts, and 2 is this is how to find all of a lot of already created materials to support the reopening as they happen. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, great. I think we will move on to the next segment. Sorry about the feedback, but if anyone else has questions for Becky, she left her email in the chat. So feel free to email her with additional questions or to contact her about the training opportunities that she talked about. So thank you so much for joining us, Becky.
Thank you. Can I point out one more thing before we go?
Sure.
The section that says for businesses are struggling so hard right now, and we created a whole reopening toolkit for them as well, and wrote and created pieces that they need for reopening so they don't have to do it. So if anyone on this call is a small business owner or small business owners, I highly recommend going and checking out that website so that they can have see all the resources available. So thank you so much for having me on. It was really nice talking to everybody.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your questions.
Thanks. Okay, so up next, Osbaldo.
Thank you, Laura. And yes, one more plug for that flu shot. So make sure you schedule it coming in soon so that you are protected against the season that's coming up upon us. So our next segment will focus on the Seattle Public Schools and resources for students and parents and guardians supporting remote learning. COVID-19 has changed the way we are living our lives these days, but the stress and strain on parents and guardians and students has been tremendous. Remote learning has changed the dynamic between students, parents, and guardians and teachers. And what about the students who aren't showing up for remote learning? Where are they?
Joining us to discuss remote learning and to help us identify resources for parents and families is Wyeth Jessee, Chief of Schools with Seattle Public Schools. Wyeth, thank you for being with us this evening.
Great to be here. Thanks, Alvin. Thank Osbaldo. I really appreciate it. Exciting.
Yes, this is great having you. So just to kind of touch on something that Osbaldo said earlier, where are the students? Are there any opportunities for to engage with for you guys to engage with the parents and students who aren't showing up for remote learning?
Yeah, so that's something that we really identified last spring. As everyone is familiar, there's a lot of change within public education, not only here in Seattle, in the region, but across the United States. And so one of our learnings was up front, we knew, hey, how are we really going to be able to, one, make the needs of our families, especially our families of students of color furthest from educational justice. So with devices, technology, if you can even turn to the next slide, you'll see a little bit some of our efforts that'll highlight that. But it's like, all right, so we know families and students need really reliable devices and connectivity. And actually, here we are in a meeting helped sponsored by the City of Seattle. We partner with the City of Seattle around connectivity and also, of course, the vendors with it. We've luckily been out with devices, got ahead of this, well documented with the help of Alaska Airlines, had a whole cargo plane full of iPads from Boston flown here in a short order. Got them out. We got them out to the schools, again, where we are Title I schools comprised of our communities of color, where we making sure we reach them. Those who may not have always the means, that we want to ensure they have what they need. That's our focus on racial equity. So got the devices, the laptops, distribution. A lot of that happened this last spring. And then as August unfurled and handing them out all the way into early September, there's a race going on and everybody wants a device. So we've prioritized that. We've distributed all our devices. So we've done a tech check, went out, every single school, educator, connecting with every family and student as appropriate, just to make sure that they had a device and connectivity. We got that information back. We're about 250 devices, just exchanging. A lot of those are new students or exchanging of devices. And then about the same number around connectivity. So we really distribute hotspots so that they can get that in some areas of the Seattle. Some hotspots don't work as well. So like your T-Mobile versus your Verizon, those are just differences where your connectivity, and using a cell phone nowadays knows some areas are just better for others. And so since we are relying on good technology, we wanted to make sure that that happened. And I love that question. If I can shift it a little bit, the other piece here is really about, so what do you do? Okay, so we've connected with every family and student. What do you need around your device and your connectivity? And now it's just on attendance. Now I do attendance checks. Every day we do attendance. We modified our attendance procedure to match what the state's is, to really give a lot of flexibility. As you know, families are in different places. We post our lessons on asynchronously too. So that means that you don't have to be necessarily there live. If your family's schedule, parent working, single household, watching younger siblings, for example, so that we make sure that we have accessibility to our priority standards. And then I can read in our dashboard around not only the attendance, if they were live, or asynchronously on one of our online platforms that's posted here, things called Schoology, Seesaw, or Microsoft Teams. And then we just look at it and then see the patterns, study those patterns, not only at the school sites, but here in central office, to make sure if someone isn't showing up or there's a pattern, we proactively reach out to see what's going on. It may be something like a device or connectivity, but it also may be things like basic needs, ability to have power, ability to have stable housing, and any other health needs that may arise. So it's a lot of information, it's a lot of things, a lot of families rely on us, and so we take that extremely important. So there's how we track them, and now we got about 95% of our students every day online connecting.
Oh, that's great.
On one of our platforms. So we know they're there, and about that other 5% is usually related to some kind of illness, not always, most certainly not usually COVID, but something else. So that would happen pre-COVID anyway.
That's great. That's great. So my wife, she's always talking about like, cause she does, like, when I'm working, my job is consistent of a lot of meetings and things like that. So a lot of times she's taking over and actually working with the kids each day, and she always talks about the challenges of so many different platforms. Do you think there will be an opportunity to kind of streamline some of these platforms? I know you mentioned Seesaw, Schoology, and I also know that they use OneDrive, and you mentioned Microsoft Teams as well. But for their actual assignments, is there any way to possibly streamline that so that they're only using like one or two platforms to avoid confusion?
Yeah, Alvin, I love that question, and we've heard from families, so I want to recognize that. How can we streamline and make it as easy and accessible to our families and, of course, our students? So we did do that. We were on a number of platforms. We were both using like Zoom and Teams, for example. We're committed to Teams. We do have a few sites for Zoom just around some accessibility for folks with disabilities. And so Teams is our common platform for that. And then things that you're saying, where are the lessons stored? Sometimes on Schoology, sometimes on OneNote. And so I've been working with my team And, all these, with 6,000 teachers, Alvin, they all come to this with a lot of history of using different platforms.
Hmm.
And so we're trying to streamline that, but with so much newness, we're trying not to overwhelm our educators as well. So it's a tough balance of, hey, could you kind of keep going this way? So we've streamlined down to teams, really using CSL and Schoology, but then where are the lessons stored? And then how are they sending that information out to families in our weekly communications? That's exactly the zone of where we're working right now with each of our staff at all the 104 schools. So to come, keep working on it.
All right, that sounds great.
Right. Well, that sounds all very stressful. I'm a former high school teacher, and I couldn't have imagined teaching in the middle of a pandemic and having to have learned so many different software and tech options when I was trying to teach also 130 students in a given day. But speaking about challenges in the classroom, let's move on to speaking a little bit of challenges in the household. So while I
Yes.
grew up in an immigrant household where both my parents did not speak English,
Yep.
what is the school district doing to support households where English is not the native language? And what are some of the resources that parents and guardians can use, whether when they're looking for language access support or just looking for remote learning support? Where can they turn to?
Yeah, yeah. Osbaldo, I love that question. And we, again, learning from the things that didn't go well and learning from the things that did go well this last spring and this summer, by the way, 15,000 students were in our summer programming. We typically have 2,500. And so we know the hunger's out there and we learn from it. And one of the things working with our community partners, especially the Seattle Council of PTSA, was, hey, they were like, Wyeth, what are we going to do to reach just the families you're mentioning, especially our families where English is not the primary language spoken. Almost a quarter of the families here in Seattle Public Schools, English is not the primary language, and so that is a common experience, Osbaldo, for a lot of our students. And so we created what are called tech resource centers. We had set those up at the beginning of September and then expanded those sites. I wish I would have posted that on this chat, but maybe there's another way I can connect with you. But we have, right now, we have 5 sites regionally within the city, especially again centered where our EL families and our African American boys are located and situated to provide. They can go in there and get help around their devices and connectivity, some basic questions around the district. And we use Linguistica as a common format in which they can exchange information freely using that software for the various languages. And then we also have been putting out information and other things that are translated for them. And then also just around at each of the school sites, we continue to obviously support our EL staff who work with the families and provide translations and interpretation wherever necessary based on the services and again the language that the student and their families speak.
That's great. So just kind of piggybacking on the earlier conversation with Laura and Becky, I saw some recent stats with King County that said COVID-19 cases are rising again in King County. What does this mean for Seattle Public Schools?
Well, right now we're committed to remote learning. We got to do this well. We're only in here so far 5 weeks into the school year, and so I just would like to take a deep breath. It's been a big lift for us. Lots of new things going on for our students and our families as well as our staff, and so we're committed to doing that. Teaching to the priority learning standards, creating community, student voice is seriously important, and engagement, as you were asking, Alvin, is how do we know they're there? And then just having them there and attending that's only the beginning. That's basic for us. It's turning around and making sure that we're engaging our learners. Where are they at? Are they working with their other students? And how are they feeling? So we know that there's a lot of needs that they have. I won't get into all of the pieces of that. And I want to get back to, the center of your question is, what are you going to do? Cases are up. We're committed to remote learning. Students with special needs and their multidisciplinary learning support teams, kind of with the family and the staff come together and make determinations for students with IEPs, individual education plans for special education services that we do provide in service for those particular students who must have it to meet the needs of those educational needs of those particular students. And then anything around bringing whole grade levels back. We're always planning. I plan, we're planning every day. We're learning every day. Seattle King County Public Health, and who was just preceding me, and the team there, they're always providing us updates. So we're ready. We'll continue to just prepare ourselves. There are changes in the health and safety protocols and the guidance that we receive. And then in the event that if we were to come back, we would be ready to. But I would just say it takes at least a couple months for us to know up front if someone was to make that decision, and our school board is the ultimate decision makers. If they were to make that decision, it would be at least a couple months for us to prepare for in person and do it well when you're talking about trying to balance both remote learning and in person. That's quite a lift for any school district, including here in Seattle, to know that we're going to do it well.
All right. Well, that's great. That's great. You shared some great information with us today. Is there any last things that you would like to share with us?
No, I just see the one question here about spaces with reliable Wi-Fi and homework support. We are working. That is one of the things that has kind of risen up lately. Is, hey, where can I get some support for my secondary student? And we're working on that. We rely a lot on our community partners for some of those resources for where they can go. But ultimately, I think it's been really successful start for us. We started off with a strong start. Our educators wanted to make a connection with our families. We are here now to partner with our families and our students to educate them. We are learning together in this, and it's extremely important that we both provide support for their mental health, setting a community, and that we know that we have health and safety protocols in place when anybody comes onto our sites, whether that be staff or students or our family and community members. So I think this opportunity to get this information out.
Wyeth, we have a few questions on the side that we would like to get into from community. But before we get to that point, I'd like to ask one more that we got for you here. So we know that food insecurity is a real thing for many families across the city. What is the school district doing to support students when it comes to meals and food access?
Yeah, so we right now, I think the number right now is 29 meal sites around the city. We've been doing that since we had to close our school sites due to COVID-19. That support continues onward. Our meal sites are open at 11. I got to make sure I go through my mind here. They are moved from at least 11:15 to 1 o'clock. So you can have those meal sites. You can find those meal sites right up on our Seattle Public Schools website. I'm happy to share that information with you. And it's been going well. We've been noticing an uptick lately over the last couple weeks in the number of families and students obviously coming to our meal sites, even comparison to where we were at in the spring. So we know the need is still there. If you allow me, just one real quickly, we do have some teen hubs. Thanks to Monica, who is one of my partners at Deal. We do have some at our middle schools, some areas where students can get some assistance for our, again, middle school students around homework support. So I just put that in there.
Thank you, Wyeth. Well, let's get into some of the questions from community on the side. Maybe you've touched on them as well, but one I see from Karen is they're asking, is tech support available in other languages?
Yes, that's why we use Linguistica, those tech support centers.
Okay.
I will help post that if you can help me out with that. I can get that information. I can get the list of the the hub spots, and I can get the list of the meal sites. I just didn't know I had so much information in 4 slides. I'm happy to hand over all that information and make it as accessible as possible.
Okay. I see Leonor has a question for middle and high schoolers. Where can they go to work in a quiet space with Wi-Fi and get homework support? Also, is there any plans for libraries to open back up? And Wyeth, I'll let you answer the first question, but if Leonor, if you can clarify if you're speaking about like the Seattle Public Libraries or the school libraries. But Wyeth, do you want to answer any of that part of the question?
Yeah, I tried to answer that beginning because I had read off of that, Osbaldo, that, yeah, absolutely. There are the teen hubs. I'll get that posted up there. I know a couple of them, but I'm not 100% sure I know all of them. So let me get that up there.
Perfect.
And then I just know that, you know, there are things like the Boys and Girls Club. I'll give that as an example. There are other to go to. There'll be resources out there, and so and I don't know about the Seattle libraries.
Okay, and we will grab that information from you, and then we will help distribute it as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. Alvin?
Oh, Alvin, I think you're muted. The tricky mute unmute.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my wife is washing dishes in the back. I didn't want you guys to hear the clanking. Let's see here. So we're going to be transitioning over to our early care and education segment here. Thank you very much, Wyeth, for joining us today. We really appreciate all of your insight and all the information you've given us.
Thanks for that opportunity, and I love this format, so I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for working with us and working through it with us.
Yeah.
All right, so we just learned about remote learning for students attending school, but what about younger children? Not all parents working from home need to go to work and have early care education for their children. A new term for daycare and preschool learning. How are these facilities operating now?
So joining us to talk more about how younger children have been impacted by the pandemic and what it has meant for their learning is Monica Liang Aguirre. She's the Early Learning Director with the Department of Education and Early Learning. Thanks for joining us, Monica.
Hi, thanks for having us.
And again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to them during the Q&A portion. So Monica, in thinking through for education and early learning, with COVID, a lot of families have hit hardship, and even before COVID too, where they don't have the finances necessarily to have the early care or preschool options. And so with this financial hardship, what resources are available to families right now?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be here. I am going to talk about 2 programs that we have through the Department of Education and Early Learning for young children. And if you can go to the next slide, give you a quick overview. So the first one is the Seattle Preschool Program, which provides high quality programming for 4-year-olds and is designed to be accessible and affordable so all Seattle families can access it. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'll also talk about the Child Care Assistance Program, which helps from ages 1 month through 13 years of age. And we provide monthly vouchers to families that can be used at any of 200 plus licensed providers throughout the city. So I'll go a little bit more detail about that, but just to sort of frame it, you know, we have just like as Seattle Public Schools have really just had to think about what does this crisis, this pandemic really mean for the youngest children, and we are really that that families get the supports they need. Every family is in a different situation. Not every family has the luxury of being able to work from home, and with a lot of essential workers, we stood up emergency childcare as well when the pandemic first hit. So it's definitely something that's rocked our department, and just trying to think about the impact that the pandemic has on our youngest children and their families. So if you could go to the next slide, please. I'll talk about the Seattle Preschool program first. Wyeth was just talking about remote learning for kindergarten through 12th grade. Well, believe it or not, our youngest 3 and 4-year-olds are also doing some remote learning. So our Seattle Preschool program providers are offering a variety of different types of programming, and some are operating in person, 100% in person, following public health guidance, but they are actually doing in-person instruction. Some of our providers are doing family directed or remote, which means that the children don't go to the buildings at all, to the facilities at all, but the families are being supported with materials and curriculum and online lessons, and families are supporting their children at home for the learning. And then we have some providers who are doing a hybrid of kind of a mix of both. So we have the gamut here with Seattle Public Schools. With Seattle Preschool program, all of our providers are either community-based organizations, or they are offered through Seattle Public Schools, or even family childcare. So we have a variety of different types of programming that could meet any type of need. We have dual language programs. We have programs that are specialized in children with special needs. So there's a bit of everything for everybody. Many of our families are eligible for tuition, and this year we decided that even for families that do pay tuition, that we're not charging any tuition for families doing 100% remote. And we've knocked off the price, also 50% for everybody else, because we know this is families. We still have spaces available
Monica?
across Seattle. Yep.
How long is that, the free and reduced tuition? How long did you say it's
for the whole school year?
Okay, and so that's until next?
That's until June.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just so parents can have a little bit more predictable budget. So again, it's if the program is 100% remote, that's absolutely free, and for the other type of in-person programs is reduced by 50%. But again, a lot of families are eligible for free tuition to begin with, so it's on a sliding scale. We do still have openings across the city, and you can apply at the website that's on this slide, seattle.gov/apply SPP. And we will be glad to help you find a spot for your 3 or 4-year-old. So that's the Seattle Preschool program.
And Monica, one more thing on the preschool program.
Sure.
So you said that you're still doing enrollment for this school year, even though the school year has already started.
Yes.
So if folks have job changes or schedule changes, because everything's still up in the air with COVID, they can still apply.
Absolutely. You can apply through next spring, for this school year still. So as long as spots, will be happily place children.
That's great. Can I ask a quick question here?
Sure.
What safety measures and COVID protocols are being taken in these in-person early care education settings?
Yeah, so it's really a wide variety of things. So first and foremost, all of our providers are following public health guidelines. And so one of the things that they are doing is they're implementing social distancing. So they are, to the best of their ability, right, with 3 and 4-year-olds, keeping children more separate than usual, keeping them in smaller groups that don't mix with other groups, so that they're sort of more contained. They're doing a lot of outside learning, at least while the weather was more appropriate. They have health checks when the kids to the building. The adults are wearing masks. There's increased sanitation in the classroom, even though childcare generally has some very high standards for sanitation and hygiene, but kids are constantly washing their hands. So, they're doing the best they can, and they also have strict protocols around what happens if a child has a cold or a staff member may have been exposed to somebody with COVID. So I have this scratchy throat now. I was really paying attention to the beginning of the presentation with season. So yes, a lot of protocols that are in place, heightened protocols.
Thank you.
And can you just tell us a few high-level things about the early care program that you have as well?
You mean the child care program?
Yes, the child care program.
If you want to go to the next slide, I have a slide on it. So we have the Child Care Assistance Program, and this is basically helps Seattle families pay for childcare. We know that childcare is an enormous cost in the best of times, and this program has always existed, but now we are also just really aware that families have increased childcare needs, right? And whereas perhaps they only needed after-school care, now they may. So the Child Care Assistance Program, CCAP is what we call it, is also income eligibility based, and is also based on family size. And we provide vouchers for income eligible families if they have a parent who's either working or attending school. We have 200 licensed providers across the city, both centers and family childcare. And it's really easy to apply. You just go to this, go to our website, seattle.gov/CCAP, and someone will, and you can kind of be screened and make sure that you see if you're eligible for a voucher. If you are not eligible for a CCAP voucher because there's an income eligibility, we also have childcare resources is a wonderful resource for families to be connected with available childcare across the city. That's not a city resource, but they are partners with us of information and referral for childcare.
Okay, great. Thank you, Monica. And I have one more question before we head to the Q&A. How long does that application process for the Child Care Assistance Program and then also for the preschool program, how long do each of those application processes take as far as waiting to hear back?
Yeah, it should be a fairly quick process. We're through the biggest rush right now, so I can't promise you, but I would say within a week we should be able to really find a place for or at least issue a voucher or find a place in the Seattle program.
Great. Thank you. So it looks like we'll open it up too. If anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I think Pam had a question. I'm not sure if this was for Seattle Public Schools, but Pam, do you want to talk a little bit more to your question?
Sure. Yeah, this is Pam. And in fact, brings up other questions just around for the early childhood piece. So I'll say kind of all of it at once and you can answer it. The early childhood piece would be, are those childcare centers accessible for children with disabilities? I know I've heard stories of parents having trouble getting their kids into different programs for that reason, but also to the education piece, wondering how Seattle Public Schools is engaging with families to identify whether or not students are having that meaningful participation piece, because I know that we can track attendance by whether a student logs on. But I know, for example, my son doesn't attend class at all because of his disability. So he's able to log on and do assignments, but he doesn't have access to general education lessons. And so that brings me to my second point. I know that some schools are offering recordings of lessons, some are not. And so how is the district informing the schools around those different policies so that we can, as parents, know and identify ways that we can engage our children in the different ways that work for them?
So
Monica,
question.
I was going to say, is that something you can answer? Or is that more for Seattle Public Schools?
I can talk about sort of the preschool component of it, which actually involves Seattle Public Schools, but I don't know if Wyeth is still on. I imagine he'll want to take.
I'm still here. Go ahead, Monica, and I can follow.
Okay, so for our preschool program, all of the programs are open for all children, regardless of any disabilities, and that being said, we do have specialized programs as well. So if we have a partnership with Seattle Public Schools, where special inclusion classrooms through Seattle Public, through Seattle Preschool program that are, we call it SPP Plus, and it's children with IEPs in a mixed classroom with typically developing peers, and so it's with a different staffing model for increased support. So that's a very intentional classroom, and then but children are also integrated throughout the community-based programs as parents get to choose what type of programming is most suitable for their family. So that's the preschool side of it.
And then Wyeth, did you want to speak to the other part?
Yeah, sure. So I will. There's a lot to Pam's question. So as she mentioned, some classrooms, some schools, really adapt about how they're providing, what we're calling asynchronous learning, or the remote learning part where it's not live classroom. And if I'm tracking correctly, Pam was mentioning, hey, my student isn't participating in the live sessions, but is accessing some of the activities through what is posted, or sometimes videos. And so there's also a whole stream of, sometimes the comfort level or the skill set of some staff as they're just jumping into remote learning, they're building on those skills, right? So we continue to train our staff to adapt to that. We also know that we have a opportunity to have small group instruction. We've tailored that. We have set up time every day to do family connections and to do small group learning for students who need those. And then my last piece would be for students with IEPs and those accommodations and modifications, whether that's, again, posting the lesson asynchronously or putting the lesson on there as appropriate. Some activities are well suited for videos, some are better for another way for students to access their lesson, group work, so on and so forth. We also know that the team may need to come together and talk about what is the beneficial things, and if there are additional accommodations and modifications needed, that the IEP team and specifically special education teachers need to assist gen ed teachers to making sure, in this case for, again, I'm not familiar with Pam's student, but to make sure, whatever those are, because, general accommodations and modifications just aren't necessarily suitable to some students with, different needs around special education. I'm going to put my email on the chat, Pam. You are welcome to reach right out to me and just ask your question, or if I can connect specifically to assist you in helping you and your students. So I'm going to go ahead and do that if you want.
Thank you, Wyeth. And it looks like we have one other question that's in the chat for Seattle Public Schools as well. So Kenya said, with all due respect, remote learning is not new. We homeschooled from 2013 to 2018, in which digital learning was mastered by organizations like WAVA, Washington Virtual Academies. Is Seattle Public Schools connecting with WAVA to learn and streamline systems to not have to recreate the wheel?
Actually, we're no. I guess my direct answer to that is no. But there are a lot of other organizations that have been doing online sessions. So we have been trying to work with other organizations, some of that with the help of the Gates Foundation, that we've been working with well over the summer, specifically myself and my colleagues, and a lot of hours to better our ability to do that. And so, all the planning and all the things you can do there, but you still have to take time to for our educators to get experience in a remote learning platform. They didn't give us, that's not something that's usually in teacher prep programs. So I think our educators are doing an outstanding job. I'm very thankful to have my own student here in Seattle Public Schools and get an education. Other organizations may have other practices that we may share some of those, and we may not. But for us, it does come down to, and I know it was mentioned somewhere, each student, we're responsible for each and every student to be engaged in their own learning and to meet their own developmental needs. So we'll continue to do that and adapt wherever we need to make sure that happens.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we have another question in the chat. So Betty says, I know remote learning is really tough for English learners and their parents, but what's being done to get them to class? Any planning being done there? And I think Wyeth might have mentioned this as far as you have about 95 students that are showing up to class. But if you want to speak any more on especially the English learners.
Yeah, and I'm happy to throw this back to Monica too. It's not, Monica and I have known each other for a while, and these are the things that really are important at preschool all the way through. As families come into the educational system, we want to make sure that we build partnerships. It is different than in previous generations. We are no longer just expanding our knowledge onto families. We actually want to partner authentically with our families and learn with them. And so if they have English learners and they need to adapt, or there are things going on in their household, we will, my expectation for schools and the school staff is to adapt based on the needs of those families. And there's over 100 different reasons why there may be challenges, as I was talking about. I'd want to know that, what it is, and then we adapt. We'll after students who aren't participating as part of our inquiry cycle in connection with families and students. But there's also just know that the expectation is we will adapt based on their needs and the students' needs. And I'll throw it to Monica because I know she's well versed in this as well.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it is certainly one our priorities at the Seattle Preschool program is to offer culturally and linguistically relevant support and instructions. And one of the reasons why we call remote learning in preschool, we call it family directed, because the truth of the matter is it's the families that are doing the teaching. This is not possible for preschool kids to sit in front of a Zoom meeting by themselves unattended or do anything on their own necessarily, right? That's related to the instruction. So we call it family directed learning, and we go off the principle that parents and families are really the first teachers, right? We've always said that, but now it's more true than ever, right? Now it's all about the families right now, especially in preschool. So in preschool, what we at that age, what we're really doing is we're offering support to families, where it's less so than directly to the children, right? In the remote setting, it's about connecting with families on a regular basis. It's about providing them with materials that are in their language that help them engage with their children and have conversations and develop skills and cognitive development, and that's appropriate for the children, and how to engage with mathematics in a very child-friendly way. So we really see this as an opportunity to work with families. And yes, the teachers do some synchronous lessons, but we know that the real work is families, and we're just providing them as much support as possible. But because we have a lot of our community-based organizations are very geared towards serving the community that they have. They have a lot of different language speakers, and it's our goal to provide as much as possible in multiple languages.
Okay, I think we will move on over to the Bird Bar food bank conversation. But before we do, I just want to call out in the chat, Betty had put a few things around the English language learners in secondary falling through the cracks. And then she just said, why please look into the secondary situation for English learners who are not participating in remote learning. So that's just an ask from Betty. And I just want to thank you, Wyeth, for coming back on for some more questions. And then also thank you, Monica, for sharing your insight around childcare and preschool.
Of course. Can I just add one more plug? Wyeth mentioned
definitely.
Wyeth mentioned the teen hubs. That's actually a partnership between SPS and Seattle Parks and Recreation and deal. And so if you want to get a list of where those teen hubs are and you don't want to wait a minute longer, you can go to the Seattle Parks and Recreation website, and there they will have more information about where the teen hubs are and
Thank you, Monica.
mm-hmm.
Thank you, Monica. That's a really important call out too, because they're with so few public spaces for teens to gather or have that accessibility to internet and things like that. It's really important.
And that's exactly the purpose of it. And they have staff there to support children in their learning as possible. So,
thank you. Okay, great. We'll move on to the Bird Bar Place Food Bank conversation. Osbaldo?
Thank you, Laura. Our next and final segment will focus on food access during times of COVID. As we all know and have experienced, the pandemic has upended life as we know it. And one of the more unsettling aspects has been the number of people relying on food banks to keep themselves and their families fed.
Trying to find that unmute. So are food banks able to handle the increased demand for COVID-19? So we'll find out. Joining us is Brian Yeager, Food Bank Coordinator of Bird Bar Place. Brian, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's been great so far.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. So yeah. I know how important the Bird Bar, even the building itself, but then also the services you offer to the Central District, how important the services you offer are to the Central District and the surrounding areas. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Bird Bar Place Food Bank and how you shifted your operations during the pandemic to serve the community?
Well, we quickly had to adapt because prior to COVID, we had, a kind of a grocery store model where clients were allowed to, access into the building and things were put out for them to shop. Obviously, that wasn't going to work. So we moved to an outdoor system, which, now that we're moving into winter is proving a little bit more of a challenge. But we put up tents and we're, encouraging social distancing, and we have a sanitation station where we, require people to wear a mask, sanitize, and wear gloves. We pre-make bags for them. Mostly the bags contain a lot of produce, a protein option that we'll give them at the table, a grain, and then we put outside under tents canned goods, maybe fruit, onions, potatoes, things like that can sit out through the day. It's been, we had to adapt a little bit to our, to get foods that were culturally appropriate and kind of guess what clients wanted in the bags. So that was a little bit of a learning curve, but I feel like we've gotten pretty good at anticipating the needs and the foods that our clients want. Which is really important for us to make sure that people have access to food that they enjoy preparing, because with that obviously comes a lot of dignity and pleasure. Yeah.
Thank
you. Go ahead, Osvaldo.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks, Brian, for that. I have a question for you. I know that there are a lot of families who face food insecurity in this country, and in our city and county as well. What can you tell us about the maybe information, data numbers of households who experience food insecurity in our community?
I don't have an exact number. I did reach out to somebody in the city today, and they weren't able to give me one. For us, we're serving currently somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 a month. Just our food bank. So if that has any, gives you any idea of how much food insecurity is out there. Mm-hmm. That's a tremendous number. Considering that we're, we really serve 3 area codes. We do get some coming from different area codes, but mostly we just serve 3 zip codes. I'm sorry. So that's a big increase for us.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. What was that increase? Was it a twofold? Was it What was it
Yeah, it was
before?
double. It was about double. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's. I mean, we're able to handle it. Thank goodness. Right now, there's a lot of support coming in, and we're building great relationships with farmers. We're supporting farmers and bringing in a lot of produce. I think with COVID, a lot of people kind of stepped up and were willing to help food banks who became aware of food insecurity more so than in the past. I hope it sustains. But like all food bank coordinators, we wish that we didn't exist, but we do.
Right.
I guess kind of along those lines of people who are supporting you, what's one way that community members can help support food banks if they have the means to help support?
Well, contributing obviously financially is a big support. Donating food, volunteering your time, voting is a big one. Also advocating that all people have access to services to meet their basic human needs, so they have a life of dignity. Help advocating that cause, I think, is a big way that you can support all social services, everything that all of us do on this call. Yeah.
One more question before I turn it over to Laura. As you know, the holidays are coming up, and I'm wondering if Bird Bar has any special plans for programs or opportunities for individuals and families to receive food assistance during the holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually curating a pretty neat fall thing for the holidays coming up. We'll definitely have, I think, try to get some traditional food items in, some fun stuff for younger people. Some, I think we're going to make a big pumpkin purchase for carvings and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to speak just a little bit on the for the youth. We are doing a backpack program that we started so that kids can have access to food over the weekend. Because I know the public school systems are doing a lot of meal prep and Fair Start as well to make sure that kids have access for food during the week. Our food bank, we're doing about 1,200 a month where we are packing essentially non-cooked items or items that kids can prepare who don't necessarily have access to kitchens. And that way they'll have 3 meals a day over the weekend. So if anybody needs that, they're more than welcome to reach out to us and we can provide help for that.
Hey, Brian, I may have missed this in the beginning of the conversation here, but I know you said you guys get a lot of donations. Where's the food you guys get? Where's it actually coming from? Are you guys getting it from like local pea patches, or is it just strictly all donations?
I'm glad you asked. We have a great relationship with the Pea Patch organization in Seattle, and we have a group of volunteers. They run a program called the Pedaling and Relief Project. So on bicycle, they go out and they actually harvest the produce, load it on their bike trailers and bring it to us. It's very beautiful in Pacific Northwest. And then we also have relationships with multiple farmers who were hit pretty hard during COVID. And, we're really focusing on small farms and we are, paying them their rate, and we are to lift them up as well. And then taking that food and distributing it directly to the people. A lot of times they're getting food that's picked fresh that morning or the day before. I'm pretty proud of it. It's an equitable food system on a very small scale, but we're going directly to the farmer and getting that food to the people. And then as well as Food Lifeline, we get food from them as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have one question in the chat. I don't know, when you were talking about the people who bike to pick up the donations, do they also deliver to families?
Yes. So yeah, we run a home delivery program, and right now it has been supported by volunteers, which is great. We do have the capability of doing it without them, but it's a great way to give your time. The bike project does do a lot of our apartment building deliveries, And then I have a few volunteers that come with their own vehicles and load up and do a lot of homes. And looking to expand that program as well. We have a little room to expand, which it's been hard to get the word out for that for some reason. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. So does anyone have any questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Gotta love that awkward silence, you know. Osbaldo or Alvin, did you have any other questions for Brian?
I don't think I have any. Oswaldo, do you have any? No.
No,
Okay.
I don't have any others. No, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Then before we move on, Brian, do you know a place that needs cloth masks? Betty is asking. For the food bank, do you also distribute cloth masks at all?
We do distribute cloth masks. We are cloth mask rich at the time. We got a lot. Hanes really got into the business. They're not even hiding it. It's pretty good. But funny. Betty, if you, I don't know how many you're talking about. I'm happy to take them off your hands if you need a place.
Oh, it's just, a bunch of us saw that Million Mask Challenge, so we decided we would help. And
are these custom made?
Yeah, by us sewers.
Then I would absolutely love them.
Okay. How do I? Have you got your email?
I'll put it up right now for you.
Because another woman had 200 and she didn't know where to. The nursing home she was going to give them to, they said they were overly rich. They were inundated. So I said, okay, I'll help you try to find a place.
Well, I'd love to take the custom ones. That'd be great. Those are fun to hand out to clients for sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
I don't know if she still has them, but I'll check.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, Brian. And I think that's everything. Brian, did you have any last announcements or things that you wanted to tell the group?
No, I think I got it all in there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Then I think it's time for us to wrap up then. Alvin?
Yes, so this has been a very exciting show for us. It's our very first community conversations. We would like to thank Becky Reitzes from Public Health Seattle, King County, Wyeth Jessee from Seattle Public Schools, Monica Liang Aguirre from Department of Education and Early Learning, and Brian Yeager from Bird Bar Place Food Bank for being a part of our very first community conversations. So now we want to hear from you. What issues and things would you like for us to explore more in your community? Would you like to be a part of our conversation? If you would, you can get in touch with us by emailing don, D-O-N, _CEC@seattle.gov.
I have also learned so much this evening. Big thanks to our guest and to my colleagues as well for such an informative program. And before I pass it on to Laura to wrap this up, I would like to remind you that the elections are coming up. The Office of King County Elections confirmed that our ballots have been mailed. And if you don't receive yours by Monday, to contact them and let them know. So if you can, please vote, make your voice count, and send your ballot back so it counts.
And then I did see one last thing in the chat. So it looks like Leonore sent a message. I don't know if this is for Betty, but it says, I would like to help deliver to a few youth and families I work with. Please send me a message to let me know how I can sign up. So I just wanted to make sure whoever that message was intended for, that they saw it.
Oh, what is there a contact email somewhere? Hello?
Leonore, can you send your email? Oh, I think it was for Brian.
Yeah, and they have the information. It's connected.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
Just wanted to double check.
Never mind.
before we hop off. Okay, great. So as you can tell, we really want you to be a part of the conversation, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be so participatory with us. So just remember that this has been created for you and about you, and our next community conversation is planned for Wednesday, November 18th from 6 to 7:30, and that's due to the Veterans Day holiday, which is the second Wednesday of the month. So before we leave this evening, I would one more time like to remind you to fill out the census if you have not done so already. The deadline is tomorrow, October 15th, and you can fill it out by going to my2020census.gov. So I'm Laura Jenkins.
I'm Alvin Edwards.
I'm Osbaldo Hernandez from the Department of Neighborhoods. Thank you, everyone, for joining the conversation, and have a great evening.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. I'll be in touch.
I think Osbaldo may have already popped off.
Did he pop off?
He's like, I'm out of here. I think Angela did too. And I just kicked through the last 3 remaining stragglers into the lobby, including Wing Wang.